Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Real Fellas Talk Sports, and I'm with the fellas. How's it going, guys? Charles Chuck Snowden, Earl Go-Go Rush, Larry, Mr. Reasonable Ables. Larry, let me start with you. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, David. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Earl, how are you?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks for asking.
And Charles Chuck Snowden, how you doing, man?
You know, I love Wednesdays. I love 8 o'clock. I love to have the chance to chop it up with my boys tonight. And so I'm in a good mood. And I'm a little down, but I'll address that in my closing comments.
All right. We've got a lot of sports to talk about tonight. A lot of things happening in sports. Of course, we're going to start with the traditional sports big issue, and that's the World Series. We don't talk about baseball that much on this show, but we're going to talk about it tonight. The Texas Rangers up 3-1 over the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I'm going to defer to my baseball experts and baseball star in his youth, Larry Ables. What do you think of the World Series at this point?
What do I think of the World Series?
Of this particular World Series.
I understand. It's competitive, but it looks like, Texas certainly has upper hand. They're up 3-0. Going in, I was looking for Ketel Marte for the star for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He has a 20-game postseason history, so he's very consistent there. And then the other breakthrough star of the previous round, Adolis Garcia, he's out for the series, and I thought that was going to be a big loss for Texas, as he drove in 15 runs in the previous series, setting a record for runs in a series. And he had gone 3 for 4 the first game and hit a home run. But he's out, but Texas still they put up like 11 runs last night. So it looks like Texas is going to win this.
Let me talk to your high school teammate, friend, Chuck Snowden, who also played a little baseball. Chuck, your thoughts on the World Series, and is Texas going to wrap this thing up tonight?
I do think Texas is going to win. I've checked in on it. I haven't been riveted to it like I was in the previous series in the ALCS and NLCS. This kid Corey Seager is a good player. Somebody that I didn't really know that much about and have gotten to know, but clearly he must be really good because he's got one of those $325 million contracts, and he's really played well as well. So,
Earl, your thoughts on the World Series?
I think it's been very competitive. Just as I suggested last week that the ratings were going to be very low. I already knew that for whatever reason, but I did know that they were going to be low. But I think it's a pretty good series, and I don't think it's going to end tonight. I believe that Texas will eventually win, but I don't think it's going to be over tonight. So.
On that point, you made a good point there, Earl, about the ratings, and I want to quickly just address that. I think all of us were much more baseball fans than we used to be. I'm just not as involved and interested in baseball as I used to, and it seems like the rest of the country is not. The first game of the World Series was the lowest rated World Series in decades. What's behind that? Is it just that baseball's behind the times? Is it game too slow? Is it just simply times have changed? Let me start with you, Earl.
I don't think it's complicated at all. Who cares about the Texas Rangers or who cares about the Diamondbacks? Nobody cares about those two teams. That's all.
Larry, would you agree with that?
No, that's essentially what it is. These, even though they're two fairly large-sized markets, they don't have the national cliche, like the Dodgers or the Yankees, teams like that.
Chuck.
Baseball's pretty regional, and those two teams have not been traditionally in the mix like they are this year. So I'm not surprised at the ratings as well.
Okay. Let's hope that it ends tonight. Or at least I'm hoping that it ends tonight, and the Texas Rangers, who were a dismal team just a couple of years ago, and they've turned it around. And one of the things you got to say about baseball, despite the disparity in money and what happens in different markets, baseball seems to have a variety of different teams in different markets all the time. And you got to give baseball credit for keeping it real in that regard. Let's move on to the NBA, which started its season last week, and we're a couple of games in. What are our initial impressions, gentlemen? And let me start with you, Chuck.
So, like you said, that's a good point. It's been a week. And a couple of things that have jumped out at me is that, Kyrie is behaving himself in Dallas so far. I know it's only been a week. And Dallas is doing pretty well. I think they may be 3 or 4 now. So that kind of jumped out at me. You had mentioned Victor Wembanyama. He has been as advertised. I watched some of that game last night. So I was kind of disappointed in Dame's performance against somebody earlier in the week. He only had 6 points for Milwaukee, which was surprising. But yes, it's off and running, and it's been pretty cool. It's a lot of balance, and the West is going to be tough.
Let me move on to our real fellas, Mr. Basketball, Larry Abels. And Larry, your thoughts initially about the early stages of the NBA season.
Well, I'm glad it's back. I'm loving League Pass, especially if it's free the first week. But, with the traditional teams, I think is great. Teams that we thought would be good, like the Celtics, the Bucks, the Lakers, Suns, Nuggets, and Golden State. All of those teams were good. But I also watched the Thunder, Oklahoma City Thunder game, and I'll tell you guys to watch out for them. The guy that came in last year,
Chet
Holmgren, and they had Gilgeous Alexander. So watch them. They're exciting. And I watched Minnesota last night, and I like Anthony Edwards. They have a good team. There's a lot of good players in the NBA. Real excited about it.
Earl, your thoughts on the NBA at this point, and then I've got another question for you, Earl, to start off with.
Well, I wouldn't apologize to Chuck last week. Charles was saying that I just finished saying to watch Oklahoma. I said, Chuck, shut up. You don't need to watch Oklahoma. But you need to watch Oklahoma. And I was wrong on that. I admit I was wrong. But I think it's too early for me to make too much judgment. But from what I've seen, I think Milwaukee's going to be tough. They don't have to score 30 or 40 points every game for them to win. If you score 6 and they win, it doesn't matter. I think Milwaukee's probably the team to beat between Milwaukee and Denver right now. I thought the Lakers were going to do something, but they need a new coach. Coach doesn't know what to do with the team. I know they need time for them to mesh. I get all that. They need a new coach. And they still need 2 more perimeter shooters because the ones they got can't hit the side of the barn. But that's it for me.
Let me go back to something that we discussed very briefly a couple of days ago in our production meeting. And Earl, you were very strong on the point about the in-season NBA tournament, which is a novel idea. The tournament is set within the bounds of the regular season, save for the championship game. It's a different concept. It's not really taking them somewhere else except for the final couple of games, which will be in Las Vegas. Earl, you said it's a bad idea. Why do you still believe that a couple of days after you made that remark?
If that's the remark I made, I didn't mean to say it's a bad idea. it's an idea that I don't like. That doesn't mean it's a bad idea, but I don't like the idea. I don't think it has a purpose or point, except for maybe pick up some little bit more sponsorship money. But I don't get the point of it. I think it's silly. But if I said bad idea, I back off that. It's just an idea that I don't like. They're two different things.
Okay. All right. Let me go to you, Larry. You watch a lot of NBA basketball. Is this something that could help bring more focus to the NBA at a time when we're focused on college football, the National Football League, and you're battling our football contagion? What do you think?
Well, I think the real problem is the NFL, with that respect. But it would certainly be a cultural change for us. It's a low risk attempt by the NBA to, I guess, drum up some excitement. When I say low risk, it's not costing them anything. It's fit into the regular season. So, if they can draw the interest, they'll win. Otherwise, I don't see what they've lost here. They haven't really, put out any money or anything. And as you stated a minute ago, it's really the only teams that will play any extra games outside of the schedule would be the two teams that play for the championship, for the cup. And that won't even count against their records. So low risk, potential high reward.
Chuck, your thoughts?
So we all like basketball, this group. So when the opening, when the season begins, we gravitate to it anyway. So I don't think for us, this group of us, the four of us, I don't think it does anything for us per se. Maybe it'll attract some other eyes to it. I'm always curious at the beginning of the year, just with some personnel changes and new rookies in the league and how new teams look. So, it doesn't do anything for me per se.
Okay.
I'm not even sure I understand it, but that's neither here nor there. That's for another
It's
show.
an unusual concept, and I've got to give the planners and the architects of the idea a pat on the back for actually trying to find a way to have a tournament that works within the bounds of the regular season, and nothing else really changes, and adding those games, because we talk about load management. Load management has been kind of the bane of the NBA's existence for the last number of years. And this might force the star players to get on the court and play. At least that's what it looks like. Let me talk, speaking of star players, the new star of the NBA, or at least proposed potential new star, Victor Wembanyama from France, 19 years old, with the San Antonio Spurs. Is he the next big thing? Earl, your thoughts?
Yes, he is.
Why?
There's nothing that he can't do. He can do anything on the court. For a gentleman of the size that he has, to have the skills that he has the skills of a guard. He's 7'4", 7'5", long wingspan. He's very agile. He's not that big physically, but he seems like he'll be all right. He's a young man. He'll fill out enough, but he don't seem like he's soft or anything like that, despite him being very small. This he's the best thing that's ever come to basketball so far. Not because I'm not getting caught up in the time because he's new. I've never seen anybody do anything like this guy can do with his size.
Mm-hmm. He does play like a guard. He plays like a small forward. He plays like a power forward. He plays like a center. He's got all of those things wrapped into one. I see you nodding your head, Chuck. Have you been thrilled, amazed at what Victor Wembanyama has been able to do?
I've enjoyed him. There's no question. I've seen him a couple of times. I saw him last night. The thing I think he does, everything you guys have said is right, and Earl, perfect. The thing I think that surprises the other players, though, is I know it sounds like, of course, Chuck, is his length. And he blocks shots from spots on the floor that surprises the other players. And
we really don't see guys block shots from that distance.
exactly. And so it starts their fast break. He's almost like a one-man zone in some cases, even out on the three-point line. So it'll be interesting to see how it all develops. They came from 20 points back against Phoenix last night and won, and he had 18 points and 8 rebounds. They look good.
Larry, let me ask you. You watch probably more NBA than all of us combined. You are a basketball guru, basketball expert. What have you seen in Victor Wembanyama?
He does it on purpose, Earl. He does it on purpose.
I am hopeful. I'm thrilled about his potential.
Okay.
He's not quite there yet. I'll say, and I heard somebody say this last night, and I think the only player that I saw come in the league and was a real star when he came in was LeBron James, right out of high school. He has a lot of potential, and I think he will eventually be everything that they're talking about. But he's got some growing to do, but I think his attitude is good. He hustles a lot. It's hard not to like him. I take him on my team in a heartbeat.
Let me ask you guys something, and let's eliminate, because it's obvious that LeBron James is one of the great stars that ever come into the NBA. We'll have to agree. I think we all agree with that. Was there a player in the history of the NBA that had, just as much hoopla, plaudits coming in and actually succeeded? And I want to take away LeBron James because that's an obvious one. Is there one that you can think of? Because we go back.
Sure.
We're a group that goes back. And Larry, let me start with you.
Kareem
Yes.
was that. There's been a lot of them, but he's one out of high school, and that's different. When you got somebody
Right.
that's seasoned, I can't say anyone else out of high school other than LeBron James. But Kareem certainly was he was a forerunner of that. One of the forerunners. Will Chamberlain probably was the same way.
Let me ask you, Earl. Who is the player that came in and transformed basketball in your lifetime, maybe, and was ballyhooed like this?
I can't name nobody that has been pumped up as much as this guy has in my lifetime coming out.
Okay. Chuck.
I would say, as Larry did earlier, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I guess Bill Walton. He came in the league and did well. I guess Russell, when he came in from San Francisco, they had won the title out there in college, and he joined the Celtics, and it wasn't long before they started winning. So I don't think he got the publicity that this guy is getting. But he had a big.
I thought that was the question. Maybe I'm just
Right.
question.
Well, it's relative. Maybe the publicity back in those days weren't. This is a
It was
machine
different.
now.
It
Right.
was different. We didn't have social media. But I think there's one player that, to me, had probably, for the time, more adulation, more people expecting great things, and that was Wilt Chamberlain. Now again, I was a baby. All of us were really not watching basketball. We weren't really capable of watching basketball at that time. We were too young. But Wilt Chamberlain, everybody waited for him to come out of Kansas. He went to the Harlem Globetrotters. He immediately averaged over 30-some points a game and 20-some rebounds. Immediately. Probably the greatest start in the history of the NBA was Wilt Chamberlain. So I just thought I would throw that in. And as
I kind of threw that in when I was saying Jabbar, I said Wilt too.
Yeah, you did say that. And Wilt was a phenomenon.
So don't try to hold all the credit.
Wilt was a phenomenon. Enough on the NBA, because we'll be talking about the NBA for months and months and months, because that's a long season. A long season. Let's switch to the most popular sport in America, and they're trying to make it a popular sport globally, the NFL. The Los Angeles Raiders overnight got rid of their coach, got rid of their general manager, and they are just saying we're going to reboot. Your thoughts about that, and I'm going to start with you, Chuck. What does it say about the Raiders? Are they a dysfunctional franchise, or are they a franchise in a brand new stadium in a city that embraces them? in a market that everybody wants to go to. They just want to transform themselves. So what do you think?
I think that they really thought Gruden would be that guy for this organization. And when they chased Gruden out, they had an interim coach who led them that year, the rest of that year, to do a pretty good record. But they ended up hiring this guy the following year. And Josh, what's his name? He's had two McDaniels. So he's had a stint in Denver, was a failure. He's had a stint in Vegas, a failure. I don't know. He's a head coach type. And more specifically, I just think that the Raiders owner is a little odd. He's a little odd. And so I don't know how well run it is. But the Gruden thing set them back because they were expecting Gruden to run this thing. And I think he had it off to a good start, and then he got in trouble.
Let me ask you, Earl. Las Vegas is a prime market for sports now. And I would say that, they have now eclipsed my hometown as the sports capital of the United States. They're winning championships in hockey. They're winning championships in ladies basketball. And it's just a hotbed. It's always been a hotbed for boxing.
Baseball teams moving there.
And combat sports and baseball. The athletics, the former Oakland A's are moving there. So, Earl, your thoughts on what's going on in Las Vegas, and was this an abrupt move? Was it a smart move to get rid of the coach and general manager in the middle of the season?
Yes, it was. They weren't doing anything. They needed to go. Somebody had to pull the trigger sometime. And they looked it up and said, we're not going nowhere with these guys. Let's not be delusional. We own the team. We don't need to be a delusional fan. This team's not going nowhere. These guys don't know what they're doing. We got to get rid of them. So when you got trouble, you got to get rid of it as soon as possible. Why would you wait? What would be the purpose of waiting?
That's a good point. Larry, do you agree with that?
I agree with the general premise. At some point, you got to pull the plug on them. But I guess 3-5 was unacceptable in Las Vegas, so somebody had to go.
That is a beautiful stadium that they play in. It's a gorgeous stadium. You got to give them credit for putting up a great palace. Enough on one quick question on the Raiders. Is Jim Harbaugh the guy they should be looking at to become the next head coach of the Raiders? I think he might be a perfect fit for the Raiders. And let me ask you, Larry, your thoughts on Jim Harbaugh, who's kind of in trouble in Michigan for spying on other teams in college football, and Michigan's kind of under the spotlight. Not a good one, a glaring spotlight for that. Is Jim Harbaugh a guy that you would pick as a possible head coach?
He's probably okay, but there's probably a lot of other people that could be a good pick, including some of the African-American coaches that have paid some dues in the NFL. So I think certainly he could be considered, but I wouldn't, narrow my choice just to him nor any other one person.
Chuck.
Well, he's going to be there are multiple teams that might be interested in him, like Chicago, the Bears, like the Washington Commanders. So it's not, Jim might have multiple suitors, if you will, come the end of the season.
Earl.
Well, I don't even know what the question is. What do I think?
Jim Harbaugh is a possible candidate for the Las Vegas Raiders.
I think I don't think it's a good one. I think for this situation, they need somebody who is a proven winner, somebody who knows what they're doing. Harbaugh may be a good coach. He may not be. I don't know whether he would be a good coach for a franchise that's as bad as that one is. They need somebody to come in and kick ass and make things go straight. He don't strike me as that type.
Okay. Let me move on to the power teams in the NFL, and it seems like it's kind of a shifting sands of who's the top team and who's not. And I'm going to start with the defending Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs, who, to be honest with you, have not looked good. Despite the record, despite what we all expect, they have not looked like a championship team, and they got barbecued by, of all teams, the Denver Broncos this past weekend. I'm going to start with you, Chuck. the Kansas City Chiefs, are they in trouble?
No, they're not in trouble at all. Look, it's a 17-game season. There are going to be people who, weeks that you stumble. As long as Patrick Mahomes is at the helm, and that defense has gotten better this year too. That's another thing that doesn't get talked about. That defense, I think they're 5th or 6th in the league now. No, they're fine. They're just fine.
Okay. Earl.
I love Patrick. I love Patrick Mahomes. He's probably the #1 quarterback right now. Him and the gentleman for Cincinnati. Kansas City's in trouble. They're in trouble. They don't have anybody to catch the ball besides Kelsey. Now, if those receivers keep dropping the ball, I don't care who's throwing it to them. They can't win like that. They don't look good. Something's going on in that organization that just has not come out yet. They don't look good at all.
Well, let me ask you something. I mean, and I'll stick with you, Earl, and let me just start with you because you're hitting on some points. Is it possible? I know a lot of folks may not agree with what I'm about to say. Is it possible that the loss of Eric Bieniemy, a guy that was been overlooked, now he's in DC and he's getting kind of the play that he probably should have gotten in Kansas City. The loss of Eric Bieniemy to Washington, is that part of it? Because to be, as good as Patrick Mahomes has been for the last 6 seasons, he's not been at that level. He's made a lot of mistakes. He threw several interceptions. I think he's at 6 interceptions this year so far. Is Eric Bieniemy's absence a problem? Is that part of the problem, Earl?
No, that's nowhere near part of the problem. Problem is they lost Hill. They only have one receiver, which I said before, Kelsey. If Bieniemy, obviously, all these last 2 years we've been on the show, we've been saying, I wonder why Bieniemy hasn't gotten picked for a head coach. People say he don't look the part, whatever. He's not that good. Have you seen the Redskins offense?
Yes, I have.
The Redskins offense is trash.
No, they're not trash. They're not trash. They can score.
Larry, sort this out for us. What do you think?
Where do you want me to start with, the enemy or the Chiefs?
Just the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay, the Chiefs. I think that they're still one of the best teams. It's not. I can't say it's a team that I would say that could beat them. However, it seems like teams are much more competitive with them now. In this league, teams are going to lose 3 or 4 games, and they're no exception to that. But they don't seem to have that at this point of the season, and it may change toward the end, but they don't seem as powerful as they have been in the past. But 6-2, I still can't really see too many teams I would bet against them on.
Okay, speaking of power teams, only a couple of weeks ago.
David, I want to jump on that too. So it's not only that Bieniemy is gone.
Before you go into that, Charles, why do you say the Redskins offense is not trash?
They're not trash. They score, Earl. They score now. I mean, they scored 30-some points against Philly twice. They can score.
But go ahead, Chuck.
But Charles, the first 4 games of the season, they never scored over 7 points in the first half. So how can you say that they've been scoring? They're not consistent offense. So if
I agree with you. I agree with you.
If you're not consistent, that's synonymous to trash.
No.
Let Chuck finish his point there, Chuck.
No, I think the fact that they don't have Bieniemy is part of it. I think the receiver thing that Earl's talking about is true. They should have added. You would think even at the deadline, added a receiver. And the other thing is, and this is kind of really down in the weeds, they have the offensive coordinator now. His name is Matt Nagy. And I have zero confidence in Matt Nagy. He was the head coach of the Chicago Bears before they ran him back to Kansas City. And he's just not that good. He is not that good. And I think you're seeing I think it's a combination of all of those things. But as long as Patrick Mahomes, number 15, and Kelsey are there, they're going to be right there.
All right, let me get to the other so-called super team that we were anointing, at least I was anointing, and I got to I got to take some egg in the face on this one. The San Francisco 49ers, they look like world beaters just 3-4 weeks ago. They have lost 3 consecutive games. And Larry, let me start with you. What's going wrong with the San Francisco 49ers?
Before I get to that, can you post Lauren's comment again? Because I didn't quite finish getting to read it.
All right, let me post that again.
I know she said something about the Chiefs, and we got to give her a prop. She's one of our most faithful viewers.
Hey, Lauren. Good.
Oh, so she's like the in-season tournament. Okay. And the Chiefs would be fine. Okay.
All
right. 2 good points, Lauren. With respect to the Chiefs, the 49ers, they're in trouble.
What's going wrong? What's the problem?
They're in trouble.
They've lost 3 games in a row, Chuck, and
they're in trouble.
Yes, they're in trouble. I think when you lose 3 games in a row, you got to kind of step back and take a look at it. And they're going in the wrong direction. The problem is the last 3 games, they've only scored 17 points. All right. Their defense is getting some blame, but they lost 1 game 19-17, 1 game 22-17. Now they kind of fell apart this week, but they're definitely something needs to change on the offensive side. It might be Debo's out, and I'm not sure when he's going to come back. Brock Purdy has not proven that he can bring a team from behind. That might be, he's a front runner. He's done very well, done a great job when they've got the lead, but I think they better be careful.
Let me add to this. There's a DC element to what's going on. Chase Young, the former Ohio State great, now been traded to the 49ers, adding to what could be defense back in action, because that was really the great strength of the 49ers early in the season was their defense, and suddenly their defense went away. Well, Chase Young, who's been often injured in his young NFL career, can he help move that franchise back up? And let me go with you, Larry. You finished out.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure it's the defense. That's why they've only scored 17 points the last 3 games. I'm thinking their problems on the other side of the ball. They gave up 31 points in this past game, but losing 19-17 and 22-17, usually that's enough for San Francisco to win a game. I think Chase Young will definitely help their defense.
Earl.
I'm just going to go about historically. Historically, anytime any player leaves the Washington franchise, they go on to become superlative ball players for any team they have. This is historically. So I'm going to go by that. Yes, I believe he will help the 49ers.
Okay. Chuck. Chase Young. Washington,
there's a couple
DC area, great. Ohio State, great. Can he help him, and can he stay healthy?
Hell yes. So he reunites with this guy Bosa from Ohio State as well. The 2 of them will be coming off the edge. I don't know why people are taking shots at Chase. Chase got 6 or 5.5 or 6 sacks. Bosa got 6 sacks. You go around the league, there are not many guys who got 6 sacks.
That's true.
So 8 games. You're right.
So he will absolutely help him. Now, again, just like I talked about Matt Nagy in Kansas City, there was a change in San Francisco too. The defensive coordinator left San Francisco and went to the Texans, who are playing pretty good. This guy Wilkes is a DB. He's a defensive back coach. They don't come at the quarterback like they did when this guy was there, the linebacker coach. They came at those the quarterbacks. So that defense was more aggressive. This guy plays more back. And I'm telling you, I think Wilkes is the problem in San Francisco. It's not, and they have had injuries. So, of course, the offense isn't as good as they were earlier in the year. Trent Williams has been out. Debo's been out. They've been banged up. I mean, even McCaffrey hasn't been full speed. But it's that defense that is not as dominant, and I think it's because they don't be aggressive. And I think that's why they went out to get Chase to increase that pass rate.
Let me talk about a team that seemingly always teases us every year. They're still the most popular franchise in the history of the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys. Haven't won anything, in 2 decades, 3 decades almost. They looked real good. And Earl, let me start with you. The Dallas Cowboys, can we count on them or not?
No, we can't count on them. Before you move on, I would just like to ask Charles to explain to me. He said the problem with 49 was the defense. And we talked about this in the production meeting. What does the defense have to do with Purdy's horrible showing?
The thing
I'm
is,
asking you, can you tell me what that has to do with what
they're not taking the ball away. They're not being. It's where they get the ball on the field position and those kinds of things. Sure, Purdy has not been as he was earlier in the year, but the reality is that team is not as healthy offensively as they were earlier in the year. And by the way, Purdy's numbers, I mean, he had what, 2 touchdowns the first game, 0 touchdowns the second game, 2 touchdowns the third game, 1 touchdown against Phoenix, and then 4 against the Cowboys. So my point is, even when they were winning, it wasn't like he was lighting up the scoreboard. So my point is the defense and them getting healthy, they'll be just fine. The thing about the Chase thing that I'm confused about, and maybe the panel can address it, and I'm sorry to take us off a little bit. I don't know how we just got a late third round pick for Chase Young, and the Bears gave us a second round pick for Sweat. Are we saying that Sweat is...
Let's talk about that after the show, man. We run short on time, man. Nobody cares about that.
Larry, let's bring some common sense back into this. And that's not to say that Chuck and Earl are not using common sense, because they are. They're very brilliant guys. Go ahead.
Well, I had already commented. I thought it was more their offense. I thought the defenses played relatively well.
Who's better than them, Larry, in the National Football League in the East or in the NFC? Who's better than the
Philadelphia?
Outside, I know, except for them. Who's better than them outside of them?
You know, it's funny. I asked that question last week. Now, you'd have to look at somebody like Detroit or Seattle, who's playing. I mean,
you can't say Seattle. You can't say Seattle, but you can say Detroit.
Oh, you can say Seattle. Come on now.
Well, aren't those teams like 6-2 or something?
Yes, they've all lost 2 games.
Yeah.
They had a worse record. San Francisco had a worse record last year at this time than they do now. Anyway, it's fine. It's okay.
All right. Are the Bengals back? Larry.
They look back this week. I'd like to see a little bit more of them. Like to see what they'll do against Baltimore and a few other teams. But they look. This was the first game that I thought the quarterback Burrows really looked like his old self. So if he could duplicate that performance, yes.
Earl, Bengals back or not?
The Bengals are back. The quarterback seems like he's running to save his life because the line's still shaky, but they're back. He's not hurt like he was hurting earlier. Cincinnati's dangerous. They got a running game, they got a passing game, and their defense is underrated.
Okay. Chuck, Bengals back.
I think he's back too. I do. I think he's back too. I think he had 57 yards rushing the other day too. But yes, the Bengals look good. He looks great.
Okay. Let me move real quickly to college football. The college football playoff rankings were announced last night. And number 1 in the rankings, Ohio State. I was somewhat surprised by that because I thought it would be Georgia. Ohio State number 1, Georgia number 2, Michigan number 3, and Florida State has come back, is number 4. Of those 4 teams, will we see these 4 teams in the playoffs, or will there be a team that will come out of nowhere and supplant 1 or maybe 2 of those colleges? Larry, let me start with you.
I hate rankings. So I'm going to predict that at least one of those teams will be out of there. I'm not sure which one.
Okay.
Perhaps 2.
Perhaps 2. And you're not going to say which 2?
Georgia and one of the Big Ten teams will be in. So that means either one of the Big Ten teams in Florida State will probably be out.
Earl.
There's a possibility that none of those teams will be in there except for Georgia. That's the way I'm looking at it. And for the life of me, yes, I bashed the Big Ten. How are you going to rate Ohio State number one team? Now, what they trying to sell, I'm not buying. I'm not buying that. Well, they beat Notre Dame and they beat Penn State. They ain't nobody. They're some overrated teams. Whoever doing this ranking, I never read them anyway.
There's a committee. That does it.
Okay.
And
Well,
they every week.
okay.
So we got 6 weeks of rankings.
Well, their first
that-
week was horrible.
So it's bad. Is it
Yeah.
because you're a Big Ten hater? I mean, let's just
It's
put
not-
it out
it's not-
there.
Because if Ohio State is the number one team in the country, the NCAA got problems.
The rest of the
Okay,
country
that's a
is in trouble.
strong statement. Chuck, you are a Big Ten grad. Indiana, proudly on your chest right now. Is he taking an unnecessary shot at Ohio State in the Big Ten?
He actually nailed it. He nailed it, meaning the reason why Ohio State has won this week is because they beat a Notre Dame that was number 10 or in the top 10, and they beat a Penn State that was in the top 10. I'm not suggesting they were great. There are great teams now, or whatever. I'm just saying when Ohio State beat them, that's where they were ranked.
Okay.
And Georgia and Michigan and Florida State, they ain't played nobody. And their rankings in terms of so that's why. Yeah, I think this year, college football, it's spread out. It's a parity situation.
Wrapping up college football, we started the college football season really praising Coach Prime and the University of Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado's had a rough going, but they're still better than they were last several years. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, has changed the whole attitude and the way we perceive the University of Colorado. Do we, Chuck, should we praise Coach Prime and Colorado, or should we be critical?
Look, I'm pro Coach Prime in Colorado, and you're right. He told you better get him now, because when he gets all those 320 pounders in on the offense and defensive line next year, they're going to look a little bit different. So I still praise him. My granddaughter went as Prime in her first Halloween costume last night, and she looked pretty cute when they hooked her up. So I'm a big Coach Prime fan.
Earl, are you pro Coach Prime, or is it all flash and dash?
I'm for Prime Time for all he's done. He's helped the economy of Colorado. He's helped the school attention. He's helping kids become better people. All that's great. I'm not really praising him. I mean, it just takes time. I think he'll be able to get the job done. He's seems to be a very good coach. But I'm not praising him right now. What is their record? 4-3 or something?
4-4, I think.
Well, what is their record? 4-4?
I think it's 4-4.
I mean, so I don't praise the mediocre stuff. His team is mediocre. He doesn't have any big guys on the offensive or defensive line. What can he do? But with what he has and what he's done, he's great. I'm not praising him. Answer your question, I'm not praising him yet.
All right, quickly, Larry, your thoughts on Coach Prime and the University of Colorado.
Well, you said, is he flash and dash? He certainly is that, but that's not all he is. He certainly uplifted the program a little bit. I'm neutral on him. I'm not going to praise him. I think he'll probably be a pretty good coach. He's like that at Jackson State, brings a lot of attention to wherever he is. He's actually the draw. I think the teams, every place he goes, gets better. It'll be interesting to see how much better he gets if he stays at Colorado for a few years.
All right, that's going to be our closing thoughts, and we're going to move from closing thoughts to our closing comments. And let me start with you, Larry. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I do. Earlier, we mentioned the NBA is having a in-season tournament, and I think we talked about in production meeting for those watching. That's the idea they got from the European soccer leagues. They have an in-season tournament, and That's great. I would like them to take another idea from the European soccer leagues. Now, the European soccer leagues have a habit of not rewarding teams that finish last. I know it's not possible in the North American sports that we do relegation and kick them out of the league, but they could make a change. And particularly, I love to see it in the NBA. Let's not reward the teams that do worse with the number 1 draft pick. Let's just have a straight lottery after every season, regardless of where people play. That'll take care of the thinking, and then that will give teams an incentive to try to win.
Good idea. Earl, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yes, I'd like to give a special splash out to one of my favorite players in the NBA. He passed away, I think it was last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago. Dennis Johnson. Dennis Johnson was one of the probably 5 people that I consider to have really ever played defense in NBA basketball. They always say this, everybody's defensive, but they're not really playing any defense. The first guy I ever saw play defense was Casey Jones from the Celtics. I used to watch him play against the 76ers when I come home from church on ABC. I'll tell you about the second guard that I ever saw play good. Some defense, but I loved him, but I thought he was overrated. It was Clyde Frazier. He did play some defense.
He did. Chuck Snowden, your thoughts, closing comments, and I know you've got a personal one.
So, yeah, as I started the show, I said, look, I'm always in a good mood when I'm with you guys, but I was a little somber today because right before the show came on, I heard that Robert Montgomery Knight, Bob Knight, passed away today. I am an Indiana graduate. I was there in 1976 when we went undefeated, won the national title. He won 3 titles for IU. He won the Olympic gold medal in '84. He won over 900 games as a college coach. When he retired, he was number 1. He's now number 5. And he coached at IU from 71 to 2000. And I just admire his ability to coach. Graduated the kids, never had a scandal with the kids. So, yeah, I do like and admire his ability to coach. I like him a lot. And before we sign off, I just want to mention, I think the all-time IU starting 5 Coach Knight coach was Scott May, Isaiah, Mike Woodson, Kent Benson, and Calbert Cheney / Steve Alford. I tied them at 5. That's my all-time.
Okay, and you left out Indianapolis homeboy Alan Henderson, but that's all right.
I know, he didn't make the cut.
All right, I've got a closing comment. I didn't see the fight. I didn't pay for the fight, but I saw the snippets. Tyson Fury knocked down by Francis Ngannou, who the MMA star. Boxing looks like it's going to be exhibition boxing that's going to draw all the money, not real fights. But it was still stunning to see the heavyweight champion of the world get knocked down by a guy who had never had a professional fight. Guess what? They'll probably have a rematch, and probably many millions more will be made. And the real undercurrent is the Saudis financed it all. And Mike Tyson got a big check too as trainer of Ngannou. Anyway, that is our show for tonight. For Larry Abels, Earl Gogo Rush, Charles Chuck Snowden, I'm David Burnett. This has been another edition of Real Fellas Talk Sports.